All right. Hello, hello, hello. This is Truth Be Told. This is Dr. Walter Aka.
Hey, and this is your boy Leroy Horton. You know what time it is, baby? Whoa, what's going on, my man?
You know, it's I'm gonna it's our last episode.
Mm,
It's our last episode of Truth Be Told, and it's funny because you and I have been talking about this for a little bit, kind of behind the scenes, and I'm a part of me is kind of excited. I'll be honest. A part of me is excited because after 8 years, one, I feel like I've run out of things to talk about. I cannot get any angrier. You know, right? Like it's saying the same thing and expecting a different outcome,
right,
right? And you kind of learn as time goes on that problems manifest themselves in different ways. But if you know history, you see the connections. You see that it's consistently the same issue,
right,
right? If we go back to when insurance first came about with dental insurance, and you had insurances where you basically would do the dentistry, you would send it off to the insurance will pay you, and then you'd be happy. People that weren't collecting insurance was like, how dare you abandon what we've been all trying to do, which is not deal with the insurance company, da da da. How, you're a crook and you're horrible. And then time goes on, and then, it becomes you're dealing with corporations. How horrible are you, and so forth. And it's basically the same thing. The big company wants to get into dentistry, and we hate it as dentists because they're somehow messing our whole entire vibe up.
right,
Then we adapt to it. Then we actually start taking it on. Then we have gurus that basically then go around telling you, how do you benefit from the thing that you hated the most?
right.
Right? It was, let me give you a course on how to optimize your insurance reimbursement. Remember that? Early
Oh yeah,
2000s. That was like, I mean,
absolutely.
bro, that was like it. Then it was, now how do you work? How do you become more like the DSOs? How do you work together so you guys can lower your lab fee and everything else? So basically the same thing the DSOs are doing. And
Right,
and I've realized more and more it's, how do we hate something that we can't really do anything about?
right.
So, with that being said, you and I have been through a heck of a journey. I really appreciate you because I think you're probably the longest co-host I've had and the most consistent co-host that I've had. You know what I mean? That's I mean, I really say that with all love, and shout out to, Dr. Craddock, Dr. Dennis, Kyle, Dr. Dumpert, right? Like there have been a lot of people that come through, but you've been the one that has kind of dealt with everything, right? You came through, and I really appreciate you, man. It's all love for you for sure because you have been able to kind of go through the vision with me and kind of go through the different iterations, I guess, of Tooth Be Told. You know what I
Right,
mean? Yeah, man, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. And so I think this last episode together, you and I, we should kind of just do a recap of what we think dentistry came from,
mm,
where it's going, and then we're gonna basically give the listeners a surprise at the end. But I don't want to say anything about that because I'm actually very excited about that last part.
right,
So
right.
what do
I'm
you
not.
what,
But tell me though, is this a retirement? Like, you know, how you get those big bands, rock bands from the '80s. They say, "Oh, it's
right,
gonna be the final tour."
right,
Everyone gets all revved up, they spend all
right.
their money, and then like a year and a half later, it's the final tour. When
No,
you say
no.
retirement, what exactly do you mean by that?
Like I am literally Tooth Be Told is done. Tooth Be Told is
Okay.
completely done. And I say that not because I'm like, oh, like I loved doing this
Mm,
podcast. Whenever I started, it was really just like, sitting around with friends, dental friends, and we would just sit there and talk about all kinds of stuff and complain and stuff. And the one thing we kept saying was like, I don't think people know that we're normal people,
right.
right? We after a hard week, we go and grab drinks. After
Hmm.
a hard week, we call our friends and complain about all the craziness. You know what I mean? We are normal people, and so it was like, could you imagine if we sat around and basically just had this little discussion, but other people were listening in, and we could educate ourselves, and we could educate the whoever's listening. and we could challenge each other to do better. Because
Right.
I found, in 2017, I found myself just going like, we have to do better than this. And this was like, before kids, when I had a lot of time on my hands. So I'm like reading articles, I'm having conversations with people like yourself. And I'm like, why do we suck so bad? Like, I'm looking at it and I'm going like a crown that was done in the, early 2000s in the 90s were doing way better than crowns that are doing that we're doing now. And I'm not sure if it's did the dentist know better then, or was the material better, or there's so many different factors. But you've seen it where like you see a patient and they're like, oh, I've had that gold tooth in there for like 40 years.
Right.
And then I'll also see another the same patient's like, oh, I had that crown done last, 6 months or last year. 6 months
Right.
ago, and now I'm taking it out because it fractured or it got recurrent decay or whatever it may be. And so for me, it was just kind of a great way to, I guess, put it all out there.
Right.
Get patients to understand where we're coming from. Get our colleagues to sit there and say, we got to do better. And then get, students to say, this is what I'm getting myself into.
Right.
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 And I know for me personally, in 2009, I almost felt lied to because when we were coming out, oh, you guys are coming into the heyday of dentistry, the mecca, the it was like, man, you couldn't do any wrong.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you graduate and you're like, I can't find a job.
Right.
The market is crashing. Dentists aren't retiring.
Mm.
Could you
Yeah.
imagine if I mean that's probably how the class of 2020 felt when they're like,
Oh,
I'm out and now what? No one wants to hire me.
no one wants to hire me because we, I mean, we always kind of joke that new grads are idiots, but we say that with love and affection
Right.
because we're self-deprecating. We talk about ourselves all the
Yeah.
time too,
We were
right?
idiots when we
We were
graduated
idiots,
in
one hundred
09.
percent. But now imagine you spent a whole good part of your last year, your most formative year,
Hmm.
doing nothing but remote lectures.
Yeah.
And that literally, like the last 6 months, people don't understand.
Yeah.
Third year, you're kind of building your patient base. Fourth year, you're really picking up. You're starting to feel yourself a little bit. It's
Hmm.
those last 6 months or fourth year where now you got a rhythm. You're going.
That's
All
it.
all these patients you've been working up are finally coming to
Yeah.
fruition,
Yeah.
and they literally had none of that.
Right. Right. And then they're supposed to go out there and all of a sudden you're supposed to be working.
Right.
And you can't get anybody to help you because they're actually putting dentists on furlough. Dentists are
Hmm.
putting assistants. They're hygienists. Everybody's getting laid off. The
Right.
government's shutting down completely. So you have debt. You have no idea if you're going to get a job. The world seems to be coming to an end.
Hmm.
I mean, I looked at it and I was like, holy crap. Like in 09, I remember just going like, nah, I'm just going to go to residency.
Right.
And I honestly think if 2020 came around, I think most of those dentists, most of those dental students should have just been like, I'm going to residency. I'm
Right.
doing a year somewhere, whatever, because then that kind of delays it for another year until the world figures out what the heck is going on. You know what I mean?
Right.
But man, let me ask you a question, man, and I'm gonna kind of break it down so you can also because you've gone through the whole gambit. People don't realize if you haven't been listening to Truth Be Told for God knows what 3 years while he's been on, he's told his whole story. But if you haven't listened, right, this man went from being an associate, owning multiple practices, teaching at the highest level, implants, by the way, teaching implants. And that actually is a great segment later on, but teaching implants. And then he decides to go back to school for perio to specialize in periodontics. So the question I have for you is
Mm.
one, why? And two, what made you decide I'm going to go and specialize? What in dentistry, what were you looking at that made you think that you needed to go back to be a periodontist?
Well, long story short, I'd
Yeah.
always wanted to specialize.
Okay.
And, I had some life events happen where I really just started thinking about, the limitation of time that we have on this planet. And I just said, you know what? It's never going to be a perfect time. I'm just going to do it. Right. Um, I knew that I'd been like, listen, my first maybe 10 years, I was working 6 days a week. just grinding out, and the toll that takes on your body, right? And when you're an owner, you're coming in early, you're leaving late, you're dealing with headaches. I 3 different Christmases I came in the office to see emergencies on
Mhm.
special patients, right? But at some point, I was just like, I know I can't do this for another 20, 25 years. So what can I do to open up the second chapter? And even though I was already on the teaching and the lecturing circuit, I saw, and it's not me being tooting my own horn, I saw a lot of mediocre people on a lecture circuit by virtue of either who they knew or the fact that their specialty degrees, the extra letters after their name, conferred or implied some type of expertise. And I'm sitting through this class like, well, either this content is garbage, the delivery is garbage. Like I know I'm good at this. I should be in these doors.
Mm.
And so I was like, you know what? If I have the specialty degree, and when I tell you, bro, the amount of work that's come my way, even when I just started residency, and people were like, "Oh, he's in a residency program. He's doing perio," and especially since I finished. I mean, you see me, bro. I'm flying to Pennsylvania, to
Mhm.
Florida. I'm going to be in Barbados
Yeah, you were in Barbados. Yeah. Hmm.
in June, Kansas City in July. Like I'm all over the place. Now, part of it is because I work on my craft. Like teaching is an art,
Right.
lecturing
And you
is an
made a
art.
lot of connections through the lecture series too.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
I made connections. And when people see your work, and then they have their own programs, they're like, "Oh, so and so is pretty dynamic." When I tell you I work on my PowerPoint skills, I work on my storytelling skills, and so I just knew that for the second half of my career, as my body would start to break down, I needed to be able to rely on something and still be involved in this arena that I have such a passion for.
Well, so okay, then I'm going to ask you this question. If the person hasn't changed, the knowledge that you acquired hasn't changed, the only thing that's changed is your title. Are you saying that the title matters more than the actual skills when it comes to lecturing?
Yes, I will say
Okay.
I'm not arrogant enough to think that I didn't learn anything in 3 years. I learned a
No,
lot
you know what
in
I
residency.
mean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But 100% certain accomplishments, certain titles, or accolades that you can gain in your life automatically will open doors.
Got you.
It's almost like a legacy admission, right? If your father went to this Ivy League school,
Mm-hmm.
your chances of getting in are much higher
Got you.
by virtue of that. It is
Got you.
it's the same thing in because there's a presumed expertise
Okay. So the
which
respect
should
level
be
goes
there.
up just based on the fact that you have a title.
Absolutely. In the teaching world, absolutely.
Got you.
Absolutely.
So the follow-up question is, was it worth it?
Yes and no, because bro, that was like a almost $400,000 experiment on my life.
Right.
Okay, 'cause we've talked about the cost of education being
Right.
insane.
Right.
100%, it's insane, right? But I was at a point in my life personally where I needed to something to rejuvenate my spirit, and it
Got you.
absolutely did.
Okay.
And when I see what it has done for me, right? So I'm director of periodontics and implants at P&W School of Dental Medicine.
Right.
I've got, you know, 7 or 8 teaching gigs that pay pretty well already booked for this year,
Right.
right? Some of them I've already, fulfilled those commitments.
Hmm.
I get to travel and talk. I get to work, and I still in private practice a couple of days a week. I get to charge more for some of the same stuff I was doing already.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's worth it if you know ahead of time, if you have a plan.
Okay.
If you're just going to, because I've got a couple co-residents and other graduates I know that they just, like you said, they were fed this pipe dream
Hmm.
that if you go to school, work hard, you're going to get out, you're going to make $500,000 a year because you're going to be a rich doctor.
Right.
And they're all struggling right now to find jobs because full-time jobs are not out there like they may have been 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Right. Right. Well, okay. So then the next question would be being a specialist. does that actually mean that your life has become easier? Right? Because as a general dentist, you said, oh, I was working 6 days a week. I don't know if I could actually deal with this anymore, meaning the toll that it took on your body. So
Right.
now that you're a specialist, is your life a lot easier?
I'm gonna venture out to say yes.
Okay, break that down.
As a general dentist, and then you did a couple years as a general dentist
Mhm.
before you went to perio as well. You're quarterbacking everything.
Okay.
You're doing all the exams, the cleanings, you're doing fillings, crowns, dentures. It's a lot. And
Hmm.
some of that stuff becomes mundane after a while and you don't enjoy it,
Okay.
right? When you specialize, especially if it's a specialty you really wanted to be a part of, the scope of what you're doing now is smaller
Hmm.
and it's almost predominantly you're doing only the stuff you like to do anyway.
Right.
In that aspect, it is easier. There's a different set of problems because now you have to worry about making sure you maintain the politics of getting referrals and establishing relationships with your
Break
general
that
dental
down. I
colleagues.
want that part broken down because I feel like a lot of people think, oh, well, it's easy because the patients will be sent to you by the general dentist. Tell me, give me an
Right.
example, and the one I'm actually thinking of is the one you mentioned a while back between you and I when we were talking, and you were talking about how one periodontist you knew would literally do the whole implant case, sent the crown to the general dentist for them to just put it on
Right.
just so that they would keep referring to patients to him. So
Right.
break that one down. Explain to me that part.
Well, I think people need to understand. People understand medicine more than they understand the dental world because
Okay.
it's out there.
Right.
So if you're watching Grey's Anatomy or ER, you know someone is your neurosurgeon, heart surgeon. They work at a hospital. They got a constant flow of patients because where
Hmm.
else they're going to go? If they're
Right.
within that network or that system, you show up to work, there's work.
That's it.
Dentistry is not like that for most dentists, especially specialists. If I'm a periodontist in this area, I've got to make sure I foster relationships with all my surrounding GPs.
Hmm.
You know, how many periodontists, you've probably done this where you're going from office to office with boxes of donuts and gift
Yep.
cards and referral pads and asking to take them out to dinner or lunch. And you have to woo your referral base.
People
You,
call that
you know.
prostitution, but go ahead, please.
I mean, listen, the parallels with prostitution are definitely there, right? Are definitely
The
there.
only thing you
But
don't
it's
do is go naked. That's the only thing you.
right.
That's
Yet,
we. Some
because
people stop short of that. Some
we're
people.
going to see with the tariffs. That might be the next move. It's going to be
Right, bro.
OnlyFans
Re-
referral program. You know,
recession kicks in. You might be seeing a lot.
right? But if you think about it,
Yeah.
I had one colleague that the battlefield was so dense with specialists.
Hmm.
He would go as far as he would do the surgical aspect, was what the surgeon does.
Right.
He would also take a digital impression.
Hmm.
He would send the digital impression to the lab, and then the lab would deliver the final crown to the general dentist to simply screw in,
That's it.
right? And when I tell you, when it's that bad, that is literally akin to prostitution, professionally speaking, right? I'm belittling myself to do your work for you
Hmm.
that you're going to cash in on because
Right.
even though he took the impression, sent it to the lab, the general dentist is going to, get that tremendous cost for
Right.
the easiest part of the procedure,
Hmm.
all that to maintain a referral base. And it was just sad. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just
And and
sad.
and to the funny thing is that doesn't for the patient, you're not being sent to, and I don't want to belittle your friend, but you're not being sent to the best or who the doctor thinks is the best. You're just being sent to the person that's doing the most favor for that general dentist.
Right.
And so you can look at that and go, is that ethically correct? Is that ethically right? Right. For example, and I just found this out through my wife, actually. She had mentioned how, and I've seen multiple dentists do this, where they basically say if you give us a good review on Yelp or Google, we'll put put your name in a basket and we'll draw it out at at the end of the month. We'll give an award or we'll give a prize.
Hmm.
That is completely illegal.
Hmm.
I looked it up.
Right.
Completely illegal. That is literally that you cannot do that at all. And I know
Right.
so many people that do that. So many offices that do that.
Right.
Right. And then as this, like you said, specialist, it's almost like a monthly ritual where we basically gather a bunch of our referral pads and like you said food and we just distribute it out,
Right.
right? And we hope that you might send us one or two patients just to kind of break even,
Yeah.
but it should not be to that point, but that's what's happening.
Yeah, it's gross, man. I mean, I don't know if that's a state specific thing. I think here in Washington, you definitely can't do that for referrals. And I know doctors will do that, refer a friend, get free movie passes or get a $50 gift card or something like that. And that, you can't pay for referrals. They've
Right,
definitely
right,
cracked
that's
down
another
on
thing
that.
too.
But it's the notion of you graduate and you just want to have a job. You want to help people, right? And as cheesy as that sounds, a lot of us were in that spot where we loved the aspects of dentistry
Mm-hmm.
that enticed us, but
Mm-hmm.
we also wanted to help people and be of
Yeah.
service. And you get out and it's like you're trying to run a business and you're trying to do politics in your
Yeah.
community with your referring doctors. And I mean, I can't tell you how many cases I've done for free,
Yep.
in my professional prostitution. Um, you know, where
I
it's
like
like
that professional prostitution. I'm gonna
professional
start using that.
prostitution.
I'm gonna start using that.
But we bail people out to
Yeah.
curry favor.
Yeah.
They did an implant, they messed up. You say, you know what? Send them to me. I got you.
I'll take care of it.
Are you really being altruistic, or are you thinking, all right, I'm gonna bank this favor,
Yep.
and they're gonna send me another 10 patients?
Yep.
And I don't know. I struggle with that because I feel like any way you look at that, it ends up being about money.
Yep.
And one of my pet peeves is when I'm talking to young students or even dental students and they're like, "Oh, as a specialist, that makes you make a whole lot more money." And I keep trying to tell them, like, "Listen, I don't want you thinking or being driven by that.
Yeah.
Money will come.
But
Money's
that's what they tell everybody. That's what they tell the young
yeah,
kids to think about. If you
yeah,
specialize in this, you'll make this much money. You
right,
specialize in this, you'll make this much money. Like they literally give them these numbers, and I'm trying to figure out where the hell they get these numbers. You think I'm kidding? I've looked. I cannot find how they come up with these numbers, but they give them these numbers, and they go, "Oh yeah, oral surgeons 70, thousand easily, 700
right,
thousand easily." And I'm like, okay,
yeah.
okay,
No, bro,
sure.
it's TikTok. Listen, I mean, you know me, I kind of get into these little spats online every now and then.
You fight with stupidity, bro. I'll be
I
honest.
really do.
You
I
there
do.
was one time like you've tagged me and stuff, and I'm like, why are you wasting your time on this? Like I literally will write, why are you wasting your time on this?
Well, because listen, and this is where my pet peeves, right? So as the story arc that we're talking about is
Yeah.
is growing on the issue of money, especially with young providers of color online. There's been this like transition to dental flexing, right?
Okay.
Where it's, hey, I'm a dentist. I'm
Hmm.
on a vacation. 20 days a month,
Right.
right?
Right.
Every day. Like after a while you realize like, oh, there's some of these pictures they're reposting. Like you didn't go back to Greece again. This is just an old photo you're recycling, right?
Right.
But or it's them in their cars or and then the one that I got on is this guy that goes up, he's like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" "Oh, I'm a dentist." "How much money do you make?"
Yeah.
And then it's answers like, "Well, anywhere from 300,000 to 3 million." And
Right.
I'm like, bro,
And
just
if you're not making a million at least, you're doing something wrong. Yeah.
bro,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
I'm a purist, and one thing I hate is I hate as a former fighter, I hate fake tough guys, right? And as someone that's in the industry with a lot more pure heart than what I'm seeing out there, I hate people that have transformed healthcare into a flex. because money can come, and there's nothing
Right.
wrong with
Right.
with,
Right.
but
Right.
it's become a hustle, and I'm scared of that because
Mm.
I don't want treatment decisions on me and my family members and whoever to be motivated by this hustle. And you've seen, I mean, come on, let's be real. You've worked in enough offices.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of treatment decisions do you think are heavily influenced by the need to produce a daily goal or a monthly goal?
Bro, that's like saying how many car dealers, ships lie to you about the quality of the car you're about to pick up.
Right.
Bro, yes, we've become dealers. We've become car salesmen. Like one thing that I've gotten to, and everything that I've now noticed, and I'm not sure if it was post-COVID, but people are hungry. When
Mm,
I say that, I'm talking about everybody, not just general dentists. I'm talking about specialists too, to the point where they've forgotten that patients should come first.
mm,
There's so I know, and that I know periodontists, and I just speak for our perio people. I know periodontists that have given up what we're basically trained to do, which is save teeth, and
right.
have become implantologists. Because implantology is low overhead if you really think about it, high reward,
Hmm.
right? And it takes you 30 minutes. You do 30 minutes, you do an extraction,
Hmm.
bone graft membrane. We'll say total of that would be 1700. And I'm
Okay.
probably lowballing.
Yeah.
30 minutes. So if you do an osseous surgery to save that tooth, that would take you an hour.
Right.
And you might get 1700 just to make everything even, apple to apple, right? That much effort for 30 minutes and that much effort for an hour. And it's harder because now, after you're done with that osseous surgery, you have to then give patients post op instructions and da da da. Versus, no, the tooth is already out. Cool. Let's get ready for the implant. So now you get double hit. Not only do
Right.
you charge for the 1700 for the extraction bone graft membrane, then you charge another, we'll say 1700 for the implant.
Right.
So why would I not go the route where I get 3400 for one tooth versus 1700 for one tooth?
Right. You know
Dentistry. Well, go
that's a
ahead.
good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question. And I've been to a number of conventions recently where I'm sitting there and I'm just observing, right? I'm listening to people talk, and I
Hmm.
realize the comparison, right? The measuring contest is how many patients do you see a day?
Right.
How much are you producing per year?
Yep.
It's never how meticulously high quality this case was,
That
right?
doesn't matter, bro.
Man, you know what? I was able to preserve that papilla. I was able to regain that attachment. Or it's always, I see like 50 to 70 patients a day. We produce 2 million, and I'm just
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
okay. Cause I tell you this much. If you telling me you see 4 or 5 patients in an hour, right? If not more, if you're seeing like 50 patients a day, right? If not more, I wouldn't want to go to you as a dentist.
Why?
Because if I need a filling and I know that I'm one of 5 people you're juggling,
Yeah.
I don't I can't trust your quality of work,
Right. Let
you
me
know?
tell you how brainwashed this whole entire dental avenue and dental field is, right? There was one of the dentists. He ended up working in a corporate setting. Okay. Then he got a job with this well established fee for service office.
Mhm.
And he went from a corporate office where he was seeing a lot of patients, like you were saying. He goes to this he goes to this fee for service office, and they booked him, like, I think it was 3 hours for a crown.
Right.
And he was like, I don't need 3 hours for that crown. And they were like, what are you talking about? You have to prep the tooth, and then you have to mill it, and then you have to deliver it all in one day. And it takes about 3 hours. He's like, no, no, no. I've been doing that at my other office. And I mean, I basically book, like 5 people, 7 people at that same time. That 3 hours I book, and they just sit around and they wait, and I move on from one patient to another. And the office manager looked at him right in his eye.
Uh-huh.
She goes, "You're not in corporate dentistry anymore.
Right.
Patients are paying a lot of money. You better do
Mm.
it right.
Yeah.
You better do it right, and you better give them their money's worth."
Right.
And he had no idea what to do. He almost felt like he was coming out of his skin because he wasn't busy. He felt like he was coming out of his skin because he didn't know what to do with his time.
Right.
And they were like, "Why don't you take your time in that prep? Why don't you
Hmm.
take your time in that scan? Why don't you take your time in that melon of the crown?" Because that patient is paying a substantial amount of money out of pocket, so they're going to expect that quality.
Right.
And he wasn't used to that. He's
Mm.
used to, let me see as many patients as possible. Let me deliver as many crowns as possible because that's how I make my money. I make it on volume, not quality, just volume.
Right.
And I'm not saying that people can't do volume and quality, but it's very, very rare. There are very select people that I know in my life that I know will prep a tooth and it looks beautiful. And I'm like, their crown looks great. And I'm like, man, they're skilled.
Right.
But they also don't do everything. They do very select things. They do crowns.
Right. Right.
80% of their work is crowns. So they've
Right.
they've honed in. They've specialized in crown. Just
Mm.
like if I asked you to take a tooth out, I can guarantee you in 15, 20 minutes that tooth will be out. Why? Because that's all you do. If you that's all you do and you suck at it, I would tell you to stop. I'd be like, "Roy, I need you to stop. Think about endo.
Right.
Think about pedo.
Right.
Anything but surgery because you are not good at this. And so, yeah, there are some people that can really do well, but they actually cut back on the other stuff that they do. You cannot be, a jack of all trades and a master of none. You have to master something in
Right.
order to be able to do the volume and actually do a good quality. Am I wrong?
No, 100%. And I think I'll take it even a step further. It's not just you as an individual, it's your team and the systems,
Come
right?
on.
The reason endodontists are so good at endo, yes, it's partly because that's all they do and they've got extra training and they're good at it. But the staff is trained for this one set of procedures. The scheduling, the instrumentation, the flow, everything is geared to maximize these small set of procedures. And when everything is flowing, oh yeah, you can bang out high quality at at a slightly higher volume than otherwise. But have you ever visited an office where they booked your day and then they gave you like a fresh off the street assistant and you were bragging like, oh yeah, I could do this in an hour, that an hour, this an hour, and they gave you someone that doesn't even know what an explorer is, and
Right.
now it's like you're behind
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
team, the structure, the
Mhm.
systems is not there.
Very true.
But so let me ask you this then:
Mm.
as a specialist that's been in numerous offices
Hmm.
yourself, seeing different business models,
Hmm.
knowing how the industry is going,
Hmm.
what is your favorite business model to be a specialist in?
Okay. So I discovered this actually very recently when I started working in more private offices.
Mm.
And I basically told them that I will not take any insurance, but I'm going to lower my fees. So I'm not going to go off of UCF, right? I'm not going to go usually customary fees. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to lower those. And so then I'm not dealing with patients that are coming and talking about my insurance is going to cover this. Why isn't my insurance covering this? I'm not dealing with insurance at all. And I found myself seeing less patients doing just as well financially, but man, those patients are so dope. Yeah, there's still, a few crazies out there. I'll be honest. No
Yeah.
matter what level of it, there's still a few crazies. The crazies are there. The Karens are gonna be there, no matter who you're dealing with. But
Right.
more and more, man, I get in there. It's a chill day. My assistants and I have no idea what to do with ourselves because we just see patients. We're cracking jokes. We're high fiving everybody. When we explain something to them, their dental IQ is higher. If I have to be honest,
Mhm.
their need to want to save teeth, their need to want to be more natural, meaning that they're not talking about implant, implant, implant all the time. Their first thought is, how do I save this tooth? Their
Right.
second thought is, if I cannot save this tooth, then how do I make sure I get the best for that replacement?
Mm.
You see, so it really is just a matter of education, and I think they value education more.
Right.
The ability to sit there and talk to them, and I say that because when I'm with other models, the patients sit there and go, "Well, I was never told." And I'm
Mhm.
telling you, when I first started working, I used to call everybody a liar. I called all the
Right.
patients liars. What do you mean you were never? Okay, okay. You know that Kevin Hart,
Yeah.
really?
Right. Right.
Like I kept thinking the patients were lying. But the
Mm.
more and more I dealt with these doctors and everything, I realized no, because of how busy they are, they never sit down to explain to anybody anything.
Right.
It's let me tell you what's going to happen. If you don't understand it, so what? I'm leaving the room.
Right.
My person's going to come in there and tell you what you owe.
Hmm.
It isn't, let me sit down and explain to you. Do you understand? No? Okay, let me try another way. Hygienists aren't doing what they used to do back in the day, which is after you cleaned the person's tooth, you would give them oral hygiene instructions. Remember that?
Mm.
Oral hygiene instructions.
Right.
Do you remember back in the day when you used to do that? When you actually would care enough to tell the patient how to improve their oral hygiene as a hygienist?
Right.
Bro, none of that. They don't even probe sometimes.
Right.
And then they go, I'm like, how did you know that that patient has gotten better or worse if you don't know what the numbers look like between the time you saw them initially and now? Oh,
Right.
well, yeah, you can just tell. Oh, so now we're doing magic.
Right.
That's what we're doing now. And that's what I'm
Right.
seeing. No, I'm serious, bro. Like the model has now become let's see as many people as possible.
Hmm.
Let's do as little of one-to-one interaction. They think that they're doing interaction, but most of the time it's everybody else sees the patient. They come in for 5 minutes and they think they had the best interaction with the patient. And
Right.
the patient's like, I saw that doctor for like 5 minutes. I
Right.
spent an hour, 2 hours at that office. And I saw the doctor for 5 minutes.
Hmm. It's funny. A couple of offices that I'm at, I can tell they can't stand me because I don't care if we're 5, 10 minutes behind.
Mm-hmm.
I do oral hygiene instruction, right? Break out the mirror.
Yep.
I get the proxy brush.
Mm-hmm.
I demonstrate. I say, hey, you're going to stay in each site 5 to 10 seconds. I was like, but you got to think about it. It takes a while. One, two, three, four, five. Rinse it under some water. One, two. And then I have them demonstrate it.
Yeah.
And that has become ever since residency. When I tell you, this is the plus about residency. You had 3 hours in the morning,
3 hours.
3 hours in the afternoon.
That's right.
Sometimes you need all 3 hours.
Right.
Most times you were done an hour and a half, 2 hours. But you had all this extra time to talk to your patient, get to know them, ask them what their actual desires and desired outcomes are
Yeah.
of you being their provider.
Right.
You get to spend extra time to teach them, to instruct them,
Yeah.
and the results are so much better when you give that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here, I had a conversation actually with a friend of mine that owns a practice, and we were talking about the hygienists, and there's a huge beef going on between hygienists and doctors, especially
Bro,
in the
that's been going on
Northwest.
since COVID. That's been
Yeah.
going on since COVID.
But the shortage, the beef, yeah, with this shortage, especially since COVID, is so intense up here in Washington right now that my friend is scared to tell the hygienist what to do, right? And she was like, "Well,
And
what's your
he owns the
advice?"
office.
Huh?
And he owns the office.
Yeah, yeah,
Could you imagine if Jeff Bezos was afraid to tell the factory worker to work faster?
right, right. And it's the thing. You would think that it's a great analogy that you used because the conversation centered around how they can work better. Because I saw things were missing, right? Whether it was charting, you know, quality of work and all that kind of
Right.
stuff.
Right.
So I gave a rundown, and then I said, but it has to be a top-down decision in leadership in this office, and you have to give your hygienist more time.
Mm.
So you can't block them in a 45-minute or hour schedule, whatever the office does. Like, They need more time to do these things that you're saying they should be doing. Well, your values, that old adage, show me your budget, I'll show you your values,
Mm,
right? The conversation was great. They were in agreement with me up until I said you got to give them more time, which means you'll probably see a few less patients. Oh, well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we could, all of a sudden it turns into double speak. You know what I mean? So people, and this is my pet peeve now, one of my pet peeves. People say they want something,
yes.
but they're not willing to either do the work or make the change. It's like your friend, if you got a friend that's always complaining about being overweight, but they never want to go to the gym
Right.
and they never want to diet. And you're
Right.
like, well, all right, well, I'm done talking to you because you don't want
Right.
it.
Right.
You
Oh,
know?
bro, don't ever, I remember this, and this is again before COVID. So when I started, I came down to Houston, and bro, I would read an article, and I would scan the article, and I would send it out to all my doctors.
Mhm.
And then I would see them the next time, like, oh, what did you think about that article? Oh, yeah, I haven't gotten around to that. Okay, first time. It is what it is. Then I'll see another article. Man, this is going to really help them because, now they know that after an implant and everything, you have to check the bite for like a year. And I remember when I was telling you this. Now now here's the article that says this.
Right.
And I'll send it out. And I'll see him again. I'll be like, yo, did you see that article? Remember we were talking? Yeah, you haven't gotten around to that, but I'll get to it. Bro, fool me once, fool
Right.
me twice, right? I
Right.
stopped. I said, you know what? Clearly you don't give a shit. Clearly
Yeah.
you don't care. You could care less about your patients. You care less about education.
Right.
But the funny thing, they're the same ones that will text me, be like, "Hey, what should I do about this? Hey, I'm about to do this extraction. Can you help me? Hey, I did my first implant. What should I prepare for?"
Right.
And I'm like, "Oh, did you read this book?" No, I didn't read any. So you have no clue what to do, but you want me to
Right.
just give you like the Cliff Note version of it,
The cliff notes. Yes.
right? And
Yes.
and and this is what dentistry looks like now. And like I
Mm.
told you, bro, I'm excited to end the chapter of Tooth Be Told because I cannot bitch anymore. I cannot bitch anymore. I am so tired of people wanting, like you said it best, bro. You're overweight. I'm telling you, the best way to do is cut back on your drinking, cut back on your smoking, cut back on your, you know, uh, candy. Start exercising. It's going to be
Right.
hard, but the results are going to come.
Right.
Well, how dare you tell me to do all this hard work? You're crazy. You know what I'm going to do instead? I'm going to go to a weekend course. I'm going to act like I know what I'm doing. And when I screw up, I'm going to blame the patient and I'm going to
Mm.
send it to you and I'm going to say, bail me out.
Yeah.
But then I'm not going to respect the fact you bailed me out because it's like, oh, well, you specialists think you're so special. You guys,
Right.
all you do is think how great you are. Well,
Right.
you've made us think how we're great because it takes so little effort on our end now.
Mm-hmm.
It literally takes very little effort on our end. Before you used to be a challenge. You
Right.
you would have intellectual conversations with referring doctors and other people, right?
Right.
Now it's kind of like you don't want to be bothered with anything intellectual. It's just kind
Mm.
of like do for me, leave me alone.
Right. Right. Well, let me ask you this because I
Yeah.
think you brought up a good potential segue something I wanted to ask you.
Mm.
So you're ending this run
Yep.
that you've had for what,
Mm-hmm.
8 years now,
8 years.
almost eight,
Yeah.
9 years.
It's been fun, man.
What has been your greatest pleasure out of all this?
Hmm.
And what has been like the most frustrating part of having a platform where not only you're engaging topics, but you're also trying to bring people in
Right.
to talk and be honest and
Right.
share and engage?
Right.
What has been your greatest pleasure and what has been your greatest frustration in these last 8 years?
Right. So the best thing, the greatest pleasure has actually been just getting to talk to different people. And I mean when I say that there've been a lot of guests that come on that have truly surprised me, like how great of a conversationalist they are,
Mhm.
how awesome they are to just talk to and learn from, how wonderful they are outside of dentistry, meaning that like you could call them and they're genuinely willing to help you out.
Mm.
I've gotten the pleasure of talking to hundreds of different doctors, and every single time I'm just like, man, that person was great. Like you and I will even after a episode, we'll text each other for a while. Like, yo, that
Yeah.
was dope. That was fun. That was a
Right.
good time, you know?
Right.
Then the other end is the podcast was called Tooth Be Told, aka Truth Be Told, right?
Hmm.
And how many people bullshit us and expect us to sit there with a straight face?
Right.
I mean, I don't know if they think we're just gonna come on here and be like, oh, okay, okay, okay. But I
Right.
have a hard time doing that. God knows you do.
Right.
God knows you have a hard time with dealing with bullshit. And like that's
Right.
all I would just be like, you do realize you came on Tooth Be Told. We tell you, be honest.
Hmm.
And then you sit there and you turn around and you say, "Oh, so I know that your practice failed, or I know that a lot of you've been having a hard time with retirement, and you just retired and you're young to retire. And so what really happened?"
Hmm.
Oh man, no, everything is wonderful. My God, I go on vacation every day and I've made so much money. Like
Right.
I used to make 40,000 every day.
Right.
But then I gave that up because I really have a passion for educating other people.
Right.
I'm gonna tell you something. Let's do the quick math. No, I'm being very serious.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Quick math. Let's just say I work 4 days
Okay.
a week and I make 40,000 every day for that
Mm.
4 days.
Hmm.
Okay. Let's do the quick math. I mean, my daughter could probably do this math for me. But I made $160,000 in 4 days.
Right.
Times that by four. You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I've made 4.8 million, no, four, yeah, 4.6 to 4.8 million dollars in a very short amount of time.
Right.
In a year, bro, in a year, I'm going to be making almost 11 million.
Hmm.
Why the hell would I ever stop that
Right.
to do
To,
anything else?
to coach.
To
To coach.
anything.
Yeah.
Coach, high five people. Why would I ever give that up?
Right.
Most businesses don't make that much money.
Yeah.
I am literally a multi-millionaire.
Right.
Why would I ever stop that? I don't care how passionate I am. I could literally be, you could come to me and be like, bro, stop retire, stop quit, stop working. And I
Right.
would tell you, give me 5 years and I'll be completely ready to retire because I would never need to do anything else and I would live very, very comfortably.
Right.
So please stop. And as the kids say, please stop the cap.
Stop the
Stop the
cap.
cap. Because there is nothing that you are doing that is as profitable as dentistry unless you're either ripping people off or you've discovered the ability to lecture to the point where people want to hear you. But it took dentistry to get you there.
Right.
Even the best lecturers, the Allens, they've had to do a lot of dentistry because they have to show that what they're saying works
Right.
clinically. No one's going to come to them and say, "Hey, Alan, remember that case you showed me 10 years ago? Oh, that's the same one you showed me? Yeah, I don't really need to come back to this class."
Right.
He has to continue to do dentistry in order
Right.
to show new cases so people can do what? Keep coming to him as a lecturer. And he is probably the pinnacle. He makes a lot of money.
Right.
Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, no, absolutely.
And
And
he's
I
still
think
doing
that
dentistry.
the ironic part though is a lot of the people that we know that are have kind of forayed into this social media influencer coaching and all that, when you go to their social media pages, they hardly ever show any actual cases.
Right.
If I take a Pat Allen course, if I take a Picos course, a Salama course,
Right.
I'm seeing case after case after
Yeah.
case. I'm seeing new cases, right? You look at the Salamas and the Gluckmans and the Richard Martins.
Hmm.
Like, not only are they still doing work, but they're doing innovative work, right? They're doing partial extraction therapy. They're doing all this kind of stuff that's new, and so these aren't old recycled cases because this is
Right.
newer stuff, right? But some of these other people that we've kind of come across, they have they have really good photographers, very good videographers.
Yep. They hire people for that.
There's a local studio, right? My daughter, she's an event planner in the office space that is like a shared office space
Hmm.
building. There's a studio in there. You can go in, you can rent a green room, you
Right.
can do all photographs and all that. They invest their money in that. And you go to their page,
Hmm.
and what do you see? It's me in my bikini. This is me in my new outfit. This is me posing. This is me laughing because life is just so wonderful. Which, if you're happy, I applaud that.
Right.
Where I get as a purist, when you're selling to the young, impressionable students, to the patients, that somehow this is what this is about, and that in my head, you're potentially ripping people off
Right.
when they sign up for your services. And the only reason I'm left to think that is because you haven't demonstrated your catalog.
Mm.
If I'm a musician and I'm trying to get a record label, I got to go with a catalog of musical work, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
if I'm in construction, if I'm a contractor, if I'm in landscaping, I got to have befores and afters. I got to show, it's frustrating, man, because I want people to do well. And if you can really make 40,000 a day consistently, 4 days a week, God bless you. I'm not going to hate you for it.
No, I want to know how you're doing it.
I want to know how you're doing it.
Right.
I've
Easily.
yet to run into anyone that's actually doing it though.
Right. Right.
We've all had a one-off here and there,
Oh,
right?
of course.
But this notion that in
It's consistent.
it's consistent now. Is there maybe the 0.01% who've kind of built a system over time and
Yeah.
100%, but it took years to get there
Right.
and they didn't have time to become coaches before they turned gray.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Usually
And
you're
and
gray
and
by
he,
that time that
right.
happens.
And I know people like that that have made a almost like a system. They've made a whole avenue, a whole environment where they're basically saying, my name has now been established. I'm going to then, almost like a franchise, I'm going to then go open up multiple areas, teach people what I know, but I'm still going to use my name to attract the celebrities, the rich people, the people that are willing to pay out of pocket for my work because they go, well, I know this name because my famous person, friend got work done.
Right,
And those people are not going to just train anybody. They're going to train people who are incredibly good
right,
because their name is still on the line.
right,
Now imagine if you worked your butt off, established your name. Do you really think you're going to go and train any and everybody? You're going to be very selective because your
great.
name is on the
It's
line
your
as well.
name. Yeah,
So when somebody is not selective and just says, I'll train whoever, I would be cautious of that.
right,
Just like I know for sure, whatever work I do, I tell my patients, you can tell anybody, Dr. Alka did this because
right,
I stand by that.
mm,
And if I'm going to teach somebody, I'm not going to teach somebody who's ripping people off.
right,
I will never be associated with something like that. Because they're
mm,
gonna be like, well, if Dr. Aka is associated with that guy, and I know that guy's a rip off artist, what makes me think I'm gonna trust him?
right,
So yeah, man. I mean, I personally believe that in these 8 years of doing this podcast, the one thing that I've learned is that everybody blames everything else, but never looks in the mirror and says, it could be me.
right,
Dentists will blame insurance, and I think insurance is horrible. I really, really do. And anybody from insurance that wants to talk to me, they can absolutely tell me how it's not. But I think insurance is horrible because I feel like insurance is the number one ripoff when it comes to some certain patients. I really
mm,
believe that. Whenever they need it, just like with anything, whenever you need it, it's not available for you.
right,
But dentists they can't sit there and say, "I'm going to blame insurance for shitty work for not being paid when you didn't chart, you didn't show proof of anything because we have very low standards, I think, in dentistry. Most of the
Right.
work we do, I feel like people don't base it off of research. They base it off of what the lab tech or the rep told them to do and use, right? If you ask the
Right.
dentist, hey, so what material are you using and why are you using it? Most of the time they just be like, oh, it works.
Right.
Nothing scientific behind it. And I think that's my biggest pet peeve. And we'll wrap this up, but that's my biggest thing is when do we go away from from being doctors?
Right.
When do we go away from that? Right. And then they get pissed when you got these people from Atlanta basically doing veneers. And you're like,
Right.
well, you're not a dentist. How dare you do veneers? Well, bitch, you're not either. The way you're acting, you're not either.
Right.
So what are we
Right.
talking
Right.
about? What are you complaining about? You have somebody who didn't go to dental school doing exactly the same thing you're doing, and you went to dental school. So what are you mad because you wasted the 4 years?
Right.
Nothing you're doing is based on research. You're just doing shit because you thought it was the greatest thing to do because people told you you would make a lot of money. And then you have somebody who actually knows what they're doing. They look at your work and they go, "This is garbage."
Right.
Now tell me how you're any different than the guy who basically went to some back street and
Right.
started doing veneers. Your
The
work
nail
looks
tech.
exactly the same. If
The
you
nail
if
tech.
you gave me two exact work of that person and you, and I put it
Right.
next to each other, and I can't tell the difference, what are we complaining about?
Right. Right. Oh, no, that episode I did with Eris Davis. You went to Teeth by Tisha, right? Teeth by
Exactly.
Tisha is doing the same thing you doing,
That's it.
but somehow she's bad for it.
That's
Well,
it.
but here's the thing. Do you feel like it's a culture? Because we've created this culture of
Yeah.
pushing the aesthetics, the veneers, just almost like plastic surgery, right?
Okay.
We create this culture of wanting stuff that you don't need,
Right.
that may not be functional,
Right.
but it's aesthetic, at least for the moment.
Right.
We ourselves as an industry have pushed that.
Yep.
And then we're mad when people that can't afford it go to the nail tech, go to
That's
Teeth
it.
by Tisha to
Teeth by
get this done.
Tisha. I like that. Okay.
Right?
That
So,
made me
how much
laugh.
responsibility do we have in creating that?
Big responsibility because we basically said, what is the low hanging fruit? Oh, yeah, everybody gets a veneer,
Mm.
right? Everybody gets a veneer. And that's the low hanging fruit. And the funny thing is, now the second low hanging fruit is implants now, where you don't, no one has challenged you enough to say you need to be well equipped in dentistry or well equipped in surgery or well equipped in understanding anatomy
Right.
because the reps are saying buy this CBCT and buy this machine and you too can place implants
Right.
without understanding anything to do with science, healing, any of that stuff. So the next thing that's going to happen is given enough time, Tisha is going to be doing immediate implants.
Hmm.
Get your immediate implant immediate implant by Michael.
Right.
Get that. No, I'm serious, bro. Like that's what's
Right.
gonna be next because all they're gonna need is basically the same machine dentists are using. It's kind of like remember when orthodontists were like, "Oh, why is everybody trying to do Invisalign?" And the funny thing is, patients don't realize that most dentists did not ever design their whole Invisalign case. They
Yeah.
sent it to what was it? Was it Costa Rica?
Um,
It
I
was
believe
out of the
so.
country.
Yeah.
They would send the scan to out of the country and the lab tech would design it and send it back to you and then you just approve it and most dentists wouldn't even make any changes, they just approve
Right.
it.
Right.
And then these companies got smart and said why the hell do we need dentists if they're not even doing any approval of or changing anything? Why can't we just skip the middle line?
Right.
Comes the what was that one company that went bankrupt?
Oh, what's it called?
Wasn't it something direct?
Some something is Teeth Direct, something Direct.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was something direct, right? It was basically you just went. They basically would send the patient the impression. They took the impression, send it back to them. They got their teeth, or their
Right.
their their liners, right? And that's what I'm trying to say is sooner or later, these companies are going to say, teach my AI system everything you know, and then I'm going to pay someone way less than you to basically do the same thing you're doing because you're really not doing anything. And that's my prediction for the future is dentists are going to basically find ways to eliminate their need, their importance.
Hmm.
I really believe that give it 20 years, you're going to realize there's going to be a lot more dental techs and less dentists doing stuff. Because
Right.
corporate is going to come and say, "Well, thank you so much for teaching the AI everything you know. Now you really don't need you. We just need one person to sit there." And they didn't have to go to school for that long.
Right.
And because corporate is going to basically push they're going to have lobbyists to basically pass these rules that says you don't need to be a dentist to own a dental office,
Right.
or we just need one dentist to basically co-sign for 50 offices. So they'll hire one dentist. So it's like a pyramid scheme that one person on top is going to do very well and everybody else is going to do really, really bad.
Yeah.
So my prediction for the future, and I'll get your prediction for the future, is dentists are going to do what dentists always do, which is basically talk themselves out of a job
Yeah.
because they're going to try to take the easy way out, and then they're going to be pissed later on, and they're going to blame everybody else but themselves.
They are. And let me I got the sunset that's blinding me all of a sudden here. Um you almost see it now with I got into it, well, not into it, but a healthy discussion with the reps at MIS implants
Mm-hmm.
at the Academy Osseointegration because they're telling me how great this new system is and their new surgical guide, and you submit the scans and the CBCT, and their techs will plan it for you, and then they'll send it to you for approval. And I was like, wait, you know, I don't want my a tech planning a case that I should know in and out. I should know the nuance of the angles, the bone, the density. A tech should not be planning this, right? Oh, well, you still get on Zoom and you go over the case together. And I'm like, okay, so if I'm still got to take the time out to review the whole case, why not just do it? Right. But what I see, because when I'm in, especially general dentist office, what happens is the tech plans it. They send a couple screenshots via email. The doctor half looks at it, says approve. They get a surgical guide. You know, the paper that comes with the guide might have two or three screenshots, sagittal or whatever. And that's how they're planning their surgery. Now, I don't know about you, but if someone was doing surgery on you, would you want that surgery planned by some third party, potentially in a different country, and the doctor shows up and literally just does the monkey work, right? Monkey's told to place guide here, drill here, right? I don't want that.
But that's the same thing that happened with Invisalign.
Right.
The same exact thing.
Yeah.
Now again, the low hanging fruit is implants.
Yeah.
Bro, it's the same exact thing. And the problem is patients don't know this.
Mm.
So they'll come in and say, I got my implant done, and the doctor told me that they got the special guide because everything's gonna be special now. They got the special guide, which is like, it takes three-dimensional images, and they're gonna find a way to use the verbiage to make it seem like they did something so spectacular.
Right.
And patients are going to feel great. And then what's going to happen is it's going to start looking like shit. And then they're going to sit there and go, well, why didn't this work? And then who they're going to blame? The doctor's not going to blame themselves. They're going to say, well, it's this company. So let me go to the other company. And the other
They're
company
prob-
is going to say, yeah, why would you ever go to that company? We do something so different. We have lab tech 2.0s that
Right. Right.
complete this for you. Of course, it's better, right? Because it's 2.0. And
Right.
then dentist is going to say, you're right. 2.0 does sound better than 1.0.
Right. Right. Yeah, they have laboratory technicians. We have technical laboratories.
Yes.
Right?
We have
It's the
certified
same company.
technical labs.
Yeah, it's probably the same company. But
Right.
that being said, man, because obviously you're saying you're retiring, but the truth
Mhm.
is I'm gonna get you on my show and we're gonna have a couple
There it
ranting sessions
is.
and all that. And then people don't know. we put on what was probably the most highly rated continuing education session that the NBA has had for a long time. And me and you did our debate.
Right.
So when you say you're retiring, between the people that watch our show, our episodes, the people that love our banter and love our educational banter when we're actually in a truly academic setting,
Right.
I can't let you get too far
Well,
because you're my bosom buddy, man. Like,
okay. See, this is when you say weird stuff. You gotta stop doing that. You say some weird borderline suspect stuff. It was doing well.
it's
We
all about
went
the
an hour
bald
and a
head.
half.
The bald head is just there's something about the milk dud head that I just can't get away from, man.
Look, let me just say this. Let me say this. I am so happy to be done with Tooth Be Told because I think it needs to be done. But then you are going to come in and people, I need everybody, whoever's listened to our voice, to now go and support you because you are continuing the path, right? So we're done complaining. That's Tooth Be Told. We're done complaining. Now you're going to do, remember, we talked about the low hanging fruit, and the low hanging fruit is implants,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be bad. If you learn something and if you are taught and you listen to the right people, implants and implant dentistry could be wonderful, both for the patient and for the doctor. And this is a transition that I'm going to say you are now starting a new podcast that will do just that. So please, brother, break it down and explain to us what the name of the podcast is and what your goal. When tooth we talked about toothpaste, so we said we want to basically be honest about dentistry. What is your goal and mission for your new podcast, and the name, and then what your mission is?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to highlight it. So, a lot of you that have followed me before know that my Instagram handle is Teach Me Implants, which there was kind of the name we came up with, me and my business partner Steve Page, years ago when we started putting on these educational curriculums. And I have a website, Teach Me Implants. And everyone that kind of knows me knows, I'm a big nerd. I'm texting you about implant stuff all the time, surgery stuff all the time. We talk about it all the time. And so, what I really wanted to do was create a platform where I could nerd out and nerd out with other people, right? So, I will be talking. It's gonna be a little bit more dense, but with the same, um, you know, passion and or human humor that I like to bring, but I'm going to bring on people that in the dental world know their shit, right? And I got Eris Davis coming back. I've got Vivian Rockton coming back to do some more specific lectures or specific discussion of specific contents. um, I got a huge name that I'm going to be hosting tomorrow. That I don't want to give that away yet, but it's going to be one of my big episodes I'm dropping. But I've got about 8 or 9 big hitters lined up that are tremendous, um, tremendous pillars in this world of surgery and implants, and we're going to pick their brain, right? And it's going to be with the same, how would I say, the same candor and honesty that we had and Tooth Be Told. I'm not bringing them on to, heavy pet them for an hour and call that a show, right? We're going to talk about, I'm going to ask them questions where they're going to have to defend their positions using the science. So it's going to be a little bit more nerdy than people are used to. And, you know, that's just my thing, and
Right.
as I was thinking, what am I going to do after Tooth Be Told? 'Cause I've really enjoyed our time here. I said, you know what? If I'm going to continue, it's got to be true to the heart of what I like to envelop myself in. And I love to nerd out in the science of things. And I 100% that is going to be the tempo of the podcast. It's still going to be entertaining, but it's definitely going to be much more of an academic direction for
Right.
sure.
And I want to do something. I want to just kind of share my screen real quick because
Uh-oh.
if you look, you basically have everything lined up, right? I don't know who drew this, but
Oh.
when I say this does not look like you at all, I mean that this
This-
cartoon looks suave. Like You know what I mean? He's just chilling on the wall. He looked like a like an anime or I don't know who did it, but the first episode was actually really cool. Like I really enjoyed it because it kind of
I
gave a
appreciate that.
it gave an idea of basically what your podcast is going to be, and I am definitely a subscriber to this. So yeah, no, I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool. You know. But yeah, man, no, honestly, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to everybody. I'm so grateful to you for taking the time because it wasn't easy, bro. You are a very busy man and you still found time out of your busy schedule to always say, "Hey, let's get it done," and there were times where technically it wasn't working out, but we always figured it out. We always
Right.
figured out something, and it was a lot of fun. And honestly, this is gonna be I think I am gonna enjoy this a lot. I enjoyed looking back. I enjoyed the the growth of the podcast,
Right.
and we started where basically there was no video. It was just us sitting there drinking and just talking stupidity, and then COVID came and we were like, well, what are we gonna do? And then Zoom came into the picture and then we were like, all right, let's do this. And it was fun, man. It was a lot of fun and I regret absolutely nothing. I really hope that people can listen to it and go back and listen to it and you'll have it all. Well, nothing, I mean, it's not gonna be deleted, it's gonna be there. But I hope that they look back and go, man, they really were trying to tell us something.
Hmm. No, it's almost like when you have kids and you're telling them something when they're teenagers and they're like, "Yeah, I don't want to hear it." And then they come to that pivotal point in their life where they're like, "Oh crap, like dad and mom actually knew something,"
That's
right?
it. That's it.
So much of I feel like our whether it was ranting and raving, whether we had, interesting guests and there was like kind of niche topics. What's great about this platform and what you have built over the 8 years is that there's content for pretty much everybody at some point in their life.
Right.
So let's say I'm young and I think I'm invincible, and I don't feel like I need to hear about nutrition and sleep and all that,
Right.
right?
Right.
But then at some point you start thinking about that as you get older. Well, boom. Not only did you have a sleep specialist on, you had Uche Odiatu talking
Mhm.
about nutrition and fitness and well-being. All this stuff is going to touch somebody at different times in their life. So it's this perpetual positivity that you've put out in the world. Because I tell you what, it's not easy to multitask and to read a book when you're working, you got kids or
Right.
whatever. But when I'm driving, hey, let me listen to this new episode of or this episode of Truth Be Told I haven't heard yet
Right.
while I'm driving.
Right.
Now I'm absorbing gems,
Right.
right? Whether
Yeah.
it's, you know, and there's a lot of gems in our complaining.
Yeah. True words. Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of gems in our
Yeah.
complaining.
You have to dig through it. You have to dig through
Yeah,
it.
but listen, man, I do want to thank you because I think that the discipline it took for 8 years. Because people don't understand. We don't just get on a show, talk shit,
Right.
log off, and it magically appears.
Right.
There's a certain amount of work you have to do in the preparation, in the post edit, in how hard is it sometimes to schedule these guests? Especially
Yes.
the ones that are like, yeah, I'll talk to my assistant and she'll you know what I mean?
And we got a lot of that. We got a few of those people who were like, oh,
Yeah,
really? Okay. All right.
right.
You know?
Like I'm talking to you now, but I got to call your assistant
Right.
tomorrow to
Right.
schedule 40 minutes that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah. Or people that would, send a whole list of what we can't talk about and stuff like I mean, there were times where I was like, no, then you know what? Never mind.
Yeah,
We're not doing it. And then they'll
right.
call back, no, 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 no. Okay, let's go ahead and just get it. I'm like, all right. So I mean, I think what we did was basically said, this is who we are. We're gonna stick fast to it. And in all 8 years, I remember there are times where people were like, oh, we want a sponsor, and I'm like, I can't.
Right.
I can't because in the end, I didn't want to be in, just I didn't want to be held to, oh, well, I can't say this about this company or I can't say this about this, product or whatever it may be because they're my sponsor. And to me, I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it without anybody else being able to tell me anything. And that was something from day one I wanted to do. And 8 years later, you know, still didn't want to take any money from anybody because I said we got to be honest with ourselves and we got to be able to just say whatever we wanted, so that freedom was definitely there. Maybe I should have. Maybe look, God damn it. I think back to now. I'm like, God, I spent a lot of money on this. Nah, but it was a lot of fun, man. It was so much fun. And I really, like I said, I appreciate everybody that was able to come on, was able to, take the co-host spot and was able to just help out. And I thank you. And I'm so glad that we're ending this, you and I together, because it really has been consistency, honesty, and just truthfully just the best thing that could have ever happened when it comes to this episode and this podcast and so forth. So you, sir, thank you very much. Honestly, please, please, please. When I say this, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You gotta go check out the podcast. Teach Me Implant. It's gonna be dope. I might even make an appearance on there if he allows me. I might make an appearance on there. But but in the end, we know that it's gonna be quality work and it's gonna be fun, and you gotta learn something.
Yeah.
And I always say this. We say this about dentistry. Like we are dentists can do so many wonderful things, but in the end, we have to understand that, one, we signed up for this because we wanted to help. And so why all of a sudden complain about what you're doing? You're reaching out and you're touching so many people. I mean, we had so many guests that would do dentistry for free. I know people that came on and did dentistry for free, went to international waters to do dentistry. So come on, let's do what we need to do, and let's continue to be successful and realize that we got to be better. So truth be told, man, we just got to be better.
Absolutely. Well, listen, man. Give us a parting catchphrase or last words for all these members. Um, it's only fitting that after all these years,
Mm.
you give them a parting message
You know,
before you.
when I started, truth be told, I wanted complete honesty, wanted complete transparency of dentistry. And it hasn't changed. But what has changed is circumstances, life changes. I have two kids now, right? I know it gets hard. I know it gets difficult. It's tough to not focus on the money part of it. But I've learned this, and I truly believe this from the bottom of my heart, that if you focus on the money, you end up losing the money, right?
Mm,
But if you focus on doing what's right for people, I promise you, the money will come.
yeah.
And I've been very blessed to just kind of say, let me focus on the people. And I've been very blessed to not need,
Mm,
and when I say not need, I mean like truly, like I don't need much of anything because I have everything I really want.
right.
Now, am I the richest dentist in the world? No, not by any stretch of imagination. Not at all. No, I would be flexing on Instagram if I was, but I have everything I possibly could ever ask for, and it's because dentistry has provided me with so much, and I'm very grateful for that. And I do dentistry. We do, truth be told, you lecture and stuff, not because you have to, but because you want to. You love dentistry, and I think when more people love dentistry, we will end up regaining the glory years, and we'll regain what people used to expect from us, which was excellence and just someone to talk to. So yeah, man, I think we need to just be honest and just focus on what's best for our patients. That's it. Very
Amen.
simple,
Can't argue with that, brother.
my man. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you, man. I really, really do, man. From the bottom of my heart, I love you, my man. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Truth Be Told. The opinions on this episode are just that, our opinions. Please consult your dental professional before taking any action with your dental health. If you have any questions about anything you heard on this episode, please contact us at Real Dentist with an S. That's REAL Dentist with an S at gmail.com. We would be very happy to return any message that we receive because we love the communication that we have with our listeners.